Hello, welcome back. I'm John, an old YouTuber. I have charged this old camcorder like 4.5 hours. I think we have power to read one more PDF. Let's read this history of the tank. I did download a lot more PDF. I did read this tank and find a lot of more, a little bit more PDF Cold War there, and a few more here, but the paper was full. I made all this paper, all this I have downloads, and I made a copy. I have done all this PDF. I have sit and downloads. Mass production. That's how they're doing the weapons in the Second World War and First World War. And I have a new paper ready there, but that's take long time to do this. So I like to read about the Leopard 2 tanks. Probably should do that tomorrow. Do some of the modern tanks before we do all the World War One and all the stuff there. But I will look at that with which read order, but maybe I should do the World War One and do a little, have some old tanks from World War One if I can find it. But let's so that's 70 pages. Let's try finish, then I will just go to bed after this. So go to bed and watch Netflix or do something on news. Watching news on my Twitter. So I did find many good. This Russia-Ukrainian war, that's the war from 2014, and Russian invasion, diesel engine. I don't know, we should do World War One. We look at that tomorrow, think about that tomorrow.
History of the tank. Soviet T-35, a 5-turreted heavy tank of the 1930s film of WWI-era French and British tanks. The history of the tank begins with World War I, when armoured all-terrain fighting vehicles were introduced as a response to the problems of trench warfare, ushering in a new era of mechanised warfare. Though initially crude and unreliable, tanks eventually became a mainstay of ground armies. By World War II, tank design had advanced significantly, and tanks were reused in quantity in all land theatres of the war. The Cold War saw the rise of modern tank doctrine and the rise of the general-purpose main battle tank. The tank still provides the backbone to land combat operations in the 21st century. Development. World War I generated new demands for armoured self-propelled weapons which could navigate any kind of terrain, and this led to the development of the tank. The great weakness of the tank's predecessor, the armoured car, was that it required smooth terrain to move upon, and new developments were needed for cross-country capability. 1. The tank was originally designed as a special weapon to solve a known as usual tactical situation, the stalemate of the trenches on the Western Front. It was a weapon designed for one simple task: crossing the killing zone between trench lines and breaking into enemy defenses. 2. The armored tank was intended to be able to protect against bullets and shell splinters, and pass through barbed wire in a way infantry units could not hope to. views allowing the stalemate to be broken. Few recognized during World War I that the means for returning mobility and shock action to combat ways already present in a device destined to revolutionize warfare on the ground and in the air. This was the internal combustion engine, which had made possible the development of the tank and eventually would lead to the mechanized forces that were to assume the old roles of horse cavalry and to loosen the grip of the machine gun on the battlefield. With increased firepower and protection, these mechanized forces would, only some 20 years later, become the armor of World War II. When self-propelled artillery, the armored personnel carrier, the wheeled cargo vehicle, and supporting aviation, all with adequate communications, were combined to constitute a modern armored division, commanders regained the capability of maneuver. Numerous concepts of armored all-terrain vehicles had been imagined for a long time. With the advent of trench warfare in World War I, the Allied French and British developments of the tank were largely parallel and coincided in time. 3. Early concepts. Leonardo da Vinci sketch of High's armored fighting vehicle. Leonardo da Vinci is often credited with the invention of a war machine that resembled a tank. 4. In the 15th century, a Hussite called Janica won several battles using armored wagons containing cannon that could be fired through holes in their sides. But his invention was not used after his lifetime until the 20th century. 5. In 1903, a French artillery captain named Léon Levavasseur proposed the Levavasseur project, a cannon autopropulsor, self-propelled cannon, moved by a caterpillar system and fully armored for protection. 6. 65. 7. Powered by an 80 HP petrol engine. The Levavasseur machine would have had a crew of 3, storage for ammunition, and a cross-country ability. 8. 65. But the viability of the project was disputed by the Artillery Technical Committee, until it was formally abandoned in 1908 when it was known that a Caterpillar tractor had been developed. The Hornsby of engineer David Roberts. 7. 1904 illustration of H. G. Wells. December 1903 the land ironclads showing huge ironclad land vessels equipped with pedrail wheels. H. G. Wells, in his short story The Land Ironclads, published in the Strand magazine in December 1903, 9, had described the use of large, armored cross-country vehicles equipped with pedrail wheels, an invention which he acknowledged as the source for his inspiration. 10. To break through a system of fortified trenches, disrupting the defense and clearing the way for an infantry advance. They were essentially long, narrow and very strong steel frameworks carrying the engines, and borne up near it. Pairs of big pedrail wheels, each about 10 feet in diameter, each a driving wheel and set upon long axles free to swivel round a common axis. This arrangement gave them the maximum of adaptability to the contours of the ground. They crawled level along the ground with 1 foot high upon a hillock and another deep in a depression, and they could hold themselves erect and steady sideways upon even a steep hillside. 11. In the years before the Great War, 2 practical tank-like designs were proposed but not developed. In 1911, the Austrian engineering officer Gunther Burstin submitted a proposal for a fighting vehicle that had a gun in a rotating turret, known as the Motorschutz. 12. In 1912, the Australian civil engineer Lancelot D. Moll's proposal included a scale model of a functional fully tracked vehicle. Both of these were rejected by their respective governmental administrations. American tracked tractors in Europe. A Holt tractor in the Vosges in early 1915 serving as an artillery tractor for a French army. De Bange 155 Mganon Benjamin Holt of the Holt Manufacturing Company of Stockton, California was the first to file a U.S. patent for a workable crawler-tip tractor in 1907. 13. 14. The center of such innovation was in England, and in 1903 he traveled to England to learn more about tungoing development, though all those he saw failed their field tests. 15. Holt paid Alvin Orlando Lombard US $60,000, equivalent to $1,809,556 in 2021, for the right to produce vehicles under Lombard's patent for the Lombard steam log hauler. 16. Holt returned to Stockton and, utilizing his knowledge and his company's metallurgical capabilities, he became the first to design and manufacture practical continuous tracks for use in tractors. In England, David Roberts of Hornsby and Sons, Grantham, obtained a patent for a design in July 1904. In the United States, Holt replaced seat wheels on a 40 horsepower, 30 kilowatts, Holt steamer, number 77, with a set of wooden tracks bolted to chains. On the 24th of November 1904, he successfully tested the updated machine plowing the soggy delta land of Roberts Island. 17. When World War I broke out, with the problem of trench warfare and the difficulty of transporting supplies to the front, the pulling power of crawling-type tractors drew the attention of the military. 18. Holt tractors were used to replace horses to haul artillery and other supplies. The Royal Army Service Corps also used them to haul long trains of freight wagons over the unimproved dirt tracks behind the front. Holt tractors were, ultimately, the inspiration for the development of the British and French tanks. 17. 19. By 1916, about 1,000 of Holt's Caterpillar tractors were used by the British in World War I. Speaking to the press, in claiming the British tanks in use in 1916 were Holt-built, Holt Vice President Murray M. Baker said that these tractors weighed about 18,000 pounds, 8,200 kilograms, and had 120 horsepower, 89 kilowatts. 20. By the end of the war, 10,000 Holt vehicles had been used in the Allied war effort. 21. French development. The Boyer-Ould machine used a huge rotating frame around a motor as its center. Early 1915, the French Colonel Jean-Baptiste Eugene Estienne articulated the vision of a cross-country armored vehicle on the 24th of August 1914. Sad smiley 22. Victory in this war will belong to the belligerent who is the first to put a cannon on a vehicle capable of moving on all kinds of terrain. Colonel Jean-Baptiste Eugene Estienne. 24 August 1914. Some privately owned Holt tractors were used by the French Army soon after the start of World War I to pull heavy artillery pieces in difficult terrain. 23. But the French did not purchase Holts in large numbers. It was the sight of them in use by the British that later inspired Estienne to have plans drawn up for an armored body on Caterpillar tracks. In the meantime, several attempts were made to design vehicles that could overcome the German barbed wire and trenches. The electric Aubriot-Gabet Fortress, mounted on a tractor chassis, 1915. A Frot-Lafley landship was tested on 28 March 1915 in France. The Swain tank prototype crossing a trench at Swain on 9 December 1915. Final Caterpillar test, on 21 February 1916. Before the mass order of the Schneider CA-1 tank on 25 February. From 1914 to 1915, an early experiment was made with the Boyer-Ould machine, with the objective of flattening barbed wire defenses and riding over gaps in a battlefield. The machine was made of huge parallel tracks, formed by four 3-meter metallic frames rotating around a triangular motorized center. This device proved too fragile and slow, as well as incapable of changing direction easily, and was abandoned. 24. In France, on the 1st of December 1914, Paul Frot, an engineer constructing canals for the Compagnie Nationale du Nord, proposed to the French Ministry a design for a landship with armor and armament based on the motorization of a compactor with heavy wheels or rollers. The Frot-Lafley was tested on 18 March 1915, and effectively destroyed barbed wire lines, but was deemed lacking in mobility. 25. The project was abandoned in favor of General SDN's development using a tractor base code named TRACT-SDN. 26. In 1915, attempts were also made to develop vehicles with powerful armor and armament, mounted on the cross-country chassis of agricultural tractors, with large wheels having coarser treads, such as the Aubriot-Gabet Fortress, fought in Aubriot-Gabet. The vehicle was powered by electricity, complete with a supply cable, and armed with a Navy cannon of 37 mm, but it too proved impractical. 27. In January 1915, the French arms manufacturer Schneider and Company sent out its chief designer, Eugene Brilly, to investigate tracker tractors from the American Holt Manufacturing Company, at that time participating in a test program in England, for a project of mechanical wire-cutting machines. On his return, Brilly, who had earlier been involved in designing armored cars for Spain, convinced the company management to initiate studies on the development of a tractive line Diet armored and armored tractor, based on the Baby Holt chassis, two of which were ordered. Experiments on the Holt Caterpillar tracks started in May 1915 at the Schneider plant with a 75 HP wheel-directed model and the 45 HP integral Caterpillar Baby Holt, showing the superiority of the latter. 28. On the 16th of June, new experiments followed, which were witnessed by the President of the Republic, and on 10 September by Commander Ferras. The first complete chassis with armor was demonstrated at Swain on the 9th of December 1915, to the French Army with the participation of Colonel SDN. 6. 68. 29. Note 1. On the 12th of December, unaware of the Schneider experiments, SDN presented to the High Command a plan to form an armored force, equipped with tracked vehicles. He was put in touch with Schneider, and in a letter dated the 31st of January 1916, Commander-in-Chief Joffre ordered the production of 400 tanks of the type designed by Brilly and SDN. 31. Although the actual production order of 400 Schneider CA1 was made a bit later on the 25th of February 1916. 32. Soon after, on the 8th of April 1916, another order for 400 Saint-Chamond tanks was also placed. 33. Schneider had trouble with meeting production schedules, and the tank deliveries were spread over several months from the 8th of September 1916. 32. The Saint-Chamond tank would start being delivered from the 27th of April 1917. 34. British development. Triton Trench Crosser, May 1915. Killin straight tractor fitted with a Delaunay Belleville armored car body. Shortly after the 30th of June 1915, experiments the No. 1 Lincoln machine, with lengthened block tracks and creeping grip tractor suspension. September 1915. In 1914, the British War Office ordered a Holt tractor and put it through trials at Aldershot. Although it was not as powerful as the 105 horsepower, 78 kilowatts, Foster Daimler tractor, the 75 horsepower, 56 kilowatts, Holt was better suited to haul heavy loads over uneven ground. Without a load, the Holt tractor managed a walking pace of 4 miles per hour, 6.4 kilometers per hour. Towing a load, it could manage 2 miles per hour, 3.2 kilometers per hour. Most importantly, Holt tractors were readily available in quantity. 35. The War Office was suitably impressed and chose it as a gun tractor. 35. In July 1914, Lieutenant Colonel Ernest Swinton, a British Royal Engineer officer, learned about Holt tractors and their exportation capabilities in rough terrain from a friend who had seen one in Antwerp, but passed the information on to the Transport Department. 36. 12. 37. 590 when the First World War broke out, Swinton was sent to France as the Army's war correspondent and in October 1914 identified the need for what he described as a machine gun destroyer across country, armed vehicle. 36, 116, 36, 12 he remembered a Holt tractor, and decided that it could be the basis for an armored vehicle. Swinton proposed in a letter